So bear with me, this is going to be a tricky one to explain. Back in episode 8, I showed you how we can compose music without actually composing by introducing this random chaos concept. And all the way back in episode 2, I showed you how we can take one idea and multiplicate upon that to create a full track. So today I'm going to marry the two. So we're going to be creating a random concept, which will then in turn generate a full track automatically, thus creating a completely randomly composed, never-ending, always changing ambient piece of music. Hopefully. I have no idea how this is going to sound. So my name's Dom, welcome to Tech Talk. So rather than spend 30-40 minutes going through every single minute detail, I've skipped ahead and I've picked out a sound selection which will act as the environment which our algorithms will play inside of. So let's start off with this lead that I've created. And this is just one instance of C3. That's all I'm really doing here. And it's just a diva patch, it's just a very generic diva patch. And if you can see carefully, we have 3 other channels which are connected to this. So this sub is routed, so all the information from main lead is going into the sub. If you're listening on a phone or without headphones or not through speakers, you might not be able to hear this sub. But what's happening is, this information is being sent into the sub and it's being pitched down by 29 semitones. So that's 3 octaves lower plus 7, and that's creating a kind of reharmonization on the bass. And we also have a bass drum, which is the same routing. And this is a secondary bass. It's more of a same sound, just slightly changed in operator. We've got an arpeggiator on this one. Let's turn this on. And it's just playing an 8th note. It's kind of creating a little palm muted bass guitar type sound. And that's just adding a bit of rhythm to this ambient track, because ambient tracks can get a bit dull and boring. And then the final one that is routed to this main lead. I call it a lead purely because it's leading other channels. This subtle pad, again, it's just a wavetable preset, and I've got a chord which I've turned on, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4 extra notes, so we're going to create a 5-note chord. And you may notice something unheard of. I'm using a C major scale for once in my life, not a C minor. So we've got these 1, 2, 3 and our 4 channels that were all connected together. So anything that happens in main lead is going to affect all these other channels. So when I turn random on, and I've got it set to 92, because 11 into 12 is 91.6 recurring, don't worry about it. So we've got this one instance of C3 that is now creating its own bass line, a rhythmic bass line, and also these chords. So we're composing without actually composing. So I've got 1, 2, 3 other channels which are completely looser, not connected to the MIDI clip that we have here. So let's listen to lead ARP. And it's the same sound as the main lead, I've just re-enveloped it into more of a pluck sound. And I'll reset what I did here. So we just had a default arpeggiator. I'm going to turn on the bass as well, just to kind of give us an anchor point for what we're doing. And we can create some kind of polyrhythmic information here. So if I nudge it up to 12, 1/12, that gives us a triplet. Let's do a step so we get an extra octave. And I'm just going to change the groove to a swing of 8. You should be able to hear a swung, kind of different pattern there. And we can play around with the style. I'm just going to pick down and up. Gives us kind of a bit of a movement. Nice bit of unpredictability there. And I'm just going to bring the gate down just to take away some of that sustain. That 23 is a good sweet spot. So yeah, it's just one kind of static note. Let's randomize this again. 92, choice is 7. And this is loose again. This is separate from our kind of brain work, kind of the lead into the sub, into the bass, into the chords. So let's hear this. Again, it's a C3. Let's turn this down. I've got another wavetable preset, and this is called Kitchen Sink. And it's got 2 oscillators. One set as 0, second oscillator at 7 semitones, so a dominant harmony there. So let's get a bit more out of that. So I'm going to go to MIDI effects. I'm going to go to chord again. I'm going to add 7 into that. Straight away, a bit more kind of emotive content there. Let's turn the random on again. I'm giving it 12 choices and it's by. So this is kind of more of an intermittent, transitional kind of pad. Let's turn this down. Just going to have that pad, adding a nice bit of air to that. And then we have our final one, which is our melody. And if you look at the clip here, it's just, rather than one C3, I've created more of a sequenced pattern. It's still C, octave lower, and the G, which is 7 semitone pattern. So it sounds like... The reason I've gone for a bit more of a range, that means we can get a bit more refined kind of movement in the notes that are going to be randomized. So, give it 12 choices. I think this is by. This preset is Position Glass, another wavetable preset. This kind of reminds me of some early 2000s Aphex Twin, the more ambient kind of stuff. So let's hear that in the mix. So we have a song that we did very little composition, and it's composing itself. It's really making its own song based on the parameters that we've created. And if ambient music is your thing, if you prefer something a bit more and better, something a bit more livelier, we can always do some kind of lo-fi hip-hop. One more other thing, if you remember in episode 5, I showed you the random parameter in the velocity MIDI effect, and that could be quite good with this melody. First thing we need to do is go into MIDI, and most kind of synthesizers will have a velocity range, and I'm just going to set that to 100. That just means we have all the ranges, all the velocity ranges in our grasp. So when I add velocity, I can just randomize that. You can see all those little values. Let's turn this on. You can see all the velocity values being randomized there. That just gives us a bit more kind of fluid movement, a bit more dynamics. It's not just static, one tone. So that means we can have all these little plucks and all these kind of vibrant dynamic aspects simmer in the mix, kind of come back to the front and back and vice versa. Let's do the same with the lead harp. Let's go into Diva. Make sure that velocity is set to top, yeah. And velocity, put this afterwards. There you go. Just getting a couple of notes a bit more sharper and a few notes a little bit duller. So there you go, that's an ambient track that has been composed without doing any composition. So as it stands, this isn't really a song, it's just a process of ideas eternally going on and on until someone presses stop. So we need to make a song out of this. So you can either click record and record it into the arrangement view, or drag and drop clips, probably the easiest way. Now some of these will not work in that principle because they aren't clips, they're rooted duplicates of the first. So in that instance, it's probably best to fade in or out because we are dealing with ambient music. Fades a little bit better than just switching, automating the track on or off. Then once you've done that, you've got a song that will retain some kind of structure, but will always generate random notes every time you press play. And if any of these ideas you think sound good, you don't have to be lost forever. You can always create a MIDI track, select MIDI from whichever you want. Let's pick the bass drum, and we're just going to record the MIDI notes from this channel. You can see there. So if there's any ideas that come along, once you press record, you've got it recorded. It's not completely gone. And then you can take that into another song or just add a different VST on top of that. Let's look at the chords. Subtle pad it was, wasn't it? Let's bring that down. And record, see what happens. We've got quite a few notes here. So if any kind of chord is generated, you've got it marked down for future reference. So as always, we could go much further with this. A few more hours spent on this, we can get bigger, more epic soundscapes. I was really trying to focus though on the simplest intermediate kind of examples of how the functionality of these MIDI effects work and how we can compose a song without actually having to do any composition. If you're going down the Boards of Canada route or early ambient Aphex Twin kind of stuff, this is a really economical way of producing content in that vein. So, as always, make sure you are subscribed and alerts turned on so you are notified of any new content from myself, Chris and Johnny. I've been Dom, see you in a bit.